Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
Welcome back to the Retire with Peace podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dave Zaegel. This episode is brought to you by CWOs for Hire, which is the financial planning firm that I co-own that focuses on retirement planning. So if you're looking for help with your retirement planning, visit us at CWOs for Hire. That's CWOSFORHIRE.com. And you're welcome to view all the podcast episodes, read all the materials we have on there, and you can certainly book a time directly on my calendar if you want to talk about retirement planning and how we might be able to help you. We often talk about principles, not perfection. This comes up quite a bit because we'll hear all sorts of stuff. People saying, oh, you must do this. You have to do this. If you're not doing this, you're going to fail. You must do this thing. They can all be good things to do, but there's very rarely tactics that 100% of the people have to do 100% of the time. There are certain strategies and structures that we very much prefer because we've seen them work over and over again, but there's nothing that has to be so absolutely perfect that it must be done one and only way all the time. For example, you might hear some people say, oh, you should always wait to take Social Security. Always wait till later, you get more money. That's just not true. Oftentimes it is. Oftentimes, absolutely, there is the benefit of waiting to take Social Security, but there's a lot of reasons not to. It could depend on spousal benefits. It could depend on if one spouse is older than the other one, and it just doesn't make sense to do that. If somebody's in bad health, it certainly doesn't make sense to wait because they might not be around very long to take those benefits. So there's plenty of reasons why you would not wait to take Social Security. Most often you do want to wait, but there's still plenty of reasons why you don't want to 100% of the time. Same thing with tax planning. We talk about Roth IRA conversions a lot, but I always do my best to say that's not 100%. Not everybody should be doing Roth IRA conversions. Many people, probably most people, at some point should be doing a Roth IRA conversion. But let's say you're still working and you're making a lot of money. Let's say you're making $500,000 a year. Is doing Roth IRA conversions right for you? The answer is maybe. And you're in some really high tax brackets. So for a lot of people, that answer is going to be no, if you're going to be in lower tax brackets when you retire. But you could also look at the other side of that and say, well, if you're somebody who's never going to be in a lower tax bracket than what you're at now, even if you are in higher tax brackets, it might still make sense to do a conversion to take off the risk of potentially higher rates in the future. So there's tons of examples to where it doesn't you can't just pin a thing and say 100% of the people do this 100% of the time, no exceptions. I'm a sports guy, so I'll use the sports analogy as I often like to do. Let's talk about basketball or soccer, take your pick. There are certain principles of how you play the game. So in terms of movement, spacing, timing, different fundamentals of how you play defense, both as a team and individually, just physically how you establish yourself in these things. There are certain principles that are important for everybody to do. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there are certain principles that you must abide by in order to be successful. But every team can do things a little bit differently. Some are really more aggressive, they're go, go, go. Some might be a little bit more, half-court defense, or on soccer, they might sit back a little bit and they don't really care about possession. They're just going to play defense and then try to counterattack. Others, they might be super fast-paced. They want to go, they want to pass, they want to run. So there's not only one way to be successful, but there's always principles that need to be followed. So for financial planning, there could be principles of starting early, saving early, principles of not outspending your income, because that's not going to work. Principles of not being too aggressive with investments, and also not being too conservative with investments if you need the growth. So there are certain principles that we have to follow, but there's not one and only one way to say you must do this for your entire plan or it's not going to work. We'll hear lots of examples, that some that I've already mentioned. We'll hear examples on, never take the pension, take the lump sum. That's, again, not 100% of the time. And I'll use a personal example, actually, which surprises a lot of people, because for a long time, I did not make any contribution whatsoever to an IRA or a 401k. Now, that statement shocks a lot of people. They say, how can you do that? You know how important these are from tax perspective, long-term growth perspective. But here's the thing. There's two things really that are involved with that. First, I started really early. So both my wife and I, when we were younger, we had built up a lot of savings into the retirement plans. So I had started out my work career at Big Four auditing firm, went over to corporate world to be an accountant for a while. And in those years, was able to put a lot away into the 401k and get the match. That was before I had kids and all that stuff. So it's pretty easy to save back then, right? But that's important because saving early actually allows for a little bit of leeway later in life. And we don't talk about this much on this podcast, and perhaps we should, because this podcast is mainly focused on retirement planning and retirement income and taxes and things. But if we look back at investing when you're younger, it's really important to start early, because we could show examples of where somebody saved, let's say, use round numbers, let's say $10,000 was saved from the time they were age 25 to 35, and then they stopped, never contributed another dime. So for 10 years, they made those contributions. Somebody else could start at age 35, do that same $10,000, and contribute all the way until they're age 65 for 30 years. Guess who wins? It's the person that started early, even though they only did 10 years, because that money has time to compound. So it's important to start early. That certainly helped in our situation. Then the second thing was, the reason that I, for a long time, did not put money into IRAs or 401ks is because I was starting a business. So a lot of the cash flow needed to go back into the business. But I could do something in the meantime. Because when you're starting a business, you don't have nearly as much taxable income as you used to, in most cases. Some people can start a business and bam, they got their income. But a lot of times, to build a business, you have to spend money on investments and find new business and things like that. That just takes time to build up the income. So there's something I can do in the meantime, which we did, which, not surprising to many of you, were Roth IRA conversions. Because our taxable income was lower, now we had room to do Roth IRA conversions in those early years of building a business. So I was not contributing directly to an IRA or 401k, but in a roundabout way was improving my positions in those 401ks and IRA accounts by converting them from a traditional to Roth and paying taxes at lower tax rates. So I bring up that example just to show how you can make a statement that says, hey, we weren't contributing to 401ks and IRAs, and everybody goes, bah, that's crazy. What are you doing? But there's not only one and only one way to do this. We started early. We did the conversions while we were building up a business. We needed the cash flow for the business. That plan can work. Your plan does not have to follow everybody else's plan. It just has to make some sense and come with a good strategy along the way. So it's important not to focus so much on thinking you must do things this exact way, because everybody's situation is going to be different. In retirement, people are going to retire at different times. They're going to take Social Security at different times. They're going to have different levels of health. Some might have Social Security and pension. Some might not have any pension and maybe even lower Social Security just because of history. Who knows? There's so many different variables that we can't focus just on saying you must do things this way. Instead, we should focus on principles that need to be followed and key strategies and how do we adapt them to your financial plan. So as you're going through your retirement planning, you probably read a whole bunch of stuff online and see online calculators. And a lot of times you'll find people that say, you must do this. Doesn't have to be that way. There can be a lot of things that are really, really helpful from a strategy standpoint. It's just a matter of determining what is best for you and your plan.